consultant, keynote speaker, life coach, author, grandmother, and wife. Did I miss anything?
Farmhand.
Farmhand?
Yes.
Oh boy, we're going to have to hear that. Folks, I am excited to welcome on the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show, Coach D, as I call her, but officially she is D. Nelson. D, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am so excited to have you on the show. I love your background. That's your book, your new book that you wrote. I have read it, and I can't wait to dig into it a lot further. You have quite the story. You have so many facets to your life, and you are now president of what's called ACE Solutions. And just real quick, what does ACE stand for?
Yeah, authentic culture and engagement.
Authentic culture and engagement. I love that. So, but before we get into all that, do you have anything for us today?
Oh, I have a mug.
Yes, I love it. Tell us about the mug. What's significant about that mug?
It is from a trip we had to Egypt in 2016.
Okay.
So my mom always wanted to go to Egypt, but was on her bucket list. And she kept saying, oh, it's not a good time. It's not a good time. I'm like, Mom, let's just do it. And so we went. It was amazing. We were there like 10 days. We got to go to Cairo. Then we caught the sleeper train to Aswan, and Aswan is where the darker skinned Egyptians are. That's where Cleopatra was. So they're like, hey, sister. We did a Nile River cruise.
Okay.
It was amazing. Just the history, the beauty of the people. And, you know, it's funny. I do diversity, so I have to put this in there. Egypt is in Africa, guys, because, you know, there are people that say, oh, it's not. But it was just beautiful to connect with the culture, the great kings and queens, the pyramids. It was an amazing trip. And so that's what that mug represents. And my son, who was probably 13 at the time, who, you know, didn't get really excited about anything, he absolutely loved it. So it actually got the introvert excited because it was an amazing trip.
Cool. That does sound absolutely amazing. Now I'm thinking, I got to, after all this is done, coronavirus, pandemic, that I have to put that on my list. So I read your book, and you've got 9 life lessons in there. And I love I love everything about it, from 6 figures to food stamps back to 6 figures.
Absolutely.
And the one overriding, I would say, thematic element of the book is obstacles into opportunities.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm going to want you to talk about that. But before we get there, tell us about your journey. And,
Sure.
and in a way, telling us your journey is about your book, because your book is your journey, and your journey is your book. So they are intertwined, I know.
They are, absolutely.
So good. Tell us about who D. Nelson is. Coach
Absolutely.
D. I love that.
Coach D, yeah. And it's kind of funny. I think I've always coached and didn't realize it, even when I was younger. But I'm a native of Tampa, Florida. And I don't know, I've just always felt like there was something about experience in life. And I probably was a little naive growing up. I was the good child that always did what I was supposed to do. But I learned early how to deal with people, and I think how to really see their souls, if that makes any sense. I always felt like everybody had something positive that they could give to the world, but they just didn't necessarily tap into it. And so my journey is, went to college. I went to an HBCU, which is a historically Black college and university. I was a legacy. My mom had gone there. My sister had gone there. Clark Atlanta University. Great experience. I was actually the homecoming queen. So I was Miss Clark. Yeah, I know. It was kind of exciting. I was in Jet magazine. I'm like, woohoo, But it wasn't because I was the prettiest or the flyest. It was because I think I was the most authentic. And I feel good that I think my ability to see people for who they are and not get into pretense has carried me. So, I graduated of, mass communications undergraduate degree. The market was dead. And I was like, what in the heck am I going to do? And so I said, I'm going to grad school because there were not many jobs. And at the time, human resources wasn't in the business school. It was actually in the public administration department. So I got a master's in public administration with the HR concentration. Loved it. Tried to get off path a little bit because I said, oh, they pay more in finance. My advisor was like, if anybody should be in HR, it's you. No, you're not going to the finance path. Did it, graduated, all excited, and there were no jobs, right? So I was like, wait a minute, I got, a master's degree and there wasn't a whole lot going on. So I interviewed with Kroger grocery chain, and I was selected to go into their management training program. Now, full transparency, it wasn't on my list of top jobs. There was not an office with a view. There was a warehouse with a pallet jack.
Yeah. All right.
But listen, I learned what what was it? That's on the pallet jack. There's a rabbit and a turtle, right? I didn't know what the heck that was, but if you put it on the rabbit and you know what you were doing, you bounce in the walls because rabbit made it go faster. But just really learn the lesson of blooming where you're planted. Got to know people in the store, got to know guys in the warehouse, people that you may not have thought you had anything in common with. Learned a lot, saw the opportunity, seized it, and was kind of promoted from there. But I had to have a great attitude about what I was doing, because in the scheme of things, it was still a blessing. Wasn't what I had planned, but I was able to see the opportunities and kind of patch it together. Went from there. After I was there, then I actually had HR experience. Went to work for a manufacturing facility of Brown and Wood. No, it wasn't Brown and Woodson yet. It was Lithonia Lighting. And I literally I thought I was, HR. I'm going to do all this fun stuff. I was in labor relations doing layoffs. I was like, oh, this is not what I planned. But I learned a lot, did contract negotiations. Funny story, a true story. They were actually picketing when I got my next job opportunity. But I was always the relatable one. So I crossed the picket line, and all the union folk were giving me hugs because it was my last day I was going on. So once again, I did that. Ended up at Walt Disney World, was there 10 years. And about Disney, you get so much industry experience. I had 7 jobs in 10 years, from Disney Institute support to call center, contemporary resort, everything. Got involved quite a bit with diversity there. Loved it. Left, went to another company, and then the bottom kind of fell out. It was recession, you know what I mean? I got laid off one company. I got fired. I can say it out loud. Fired at another company. I didn't care. I got fired for the right reasons. They were really doing some ugly stuff, and I stood up, and it was probationary period. So they probably thought, you're mighty bold to be being so honest, and you just got here. But I don't care. I knock down doors that I may not walk through. I think the right thing is the right thing regardless of the consequences. And although I did get fired, the person that was harassing people was forced to resign. So I counted that as a win, right?
Right.
But then it was 2008, there were no jobs. So it was like, what am I going to do? At the time I was a single mom. I still had 3 kids at home, and I was like, But I learned how to move through it. And there was a period of time, and it's so funny. I mean, I believe in divine order. So I didn't know why, but what happened was my youngest son was in a private school. And the administrator said, well, there's this Step Up Scholarship program. You may be able to get it. And I thought, okay, we'll see. But I didn't think so, because at the time, right before I got fired, I was making close to 6 figures, and it was income based. At the time, I had a son that had disabilities, so I was able to get the Social Security disability for him and the unemployment. And I was like, I don't think I really need food stamps. But I said, well, and finally I said, I might as well. I've been put into the system. Go ahead and apply. Little did I know that was the key to the next step. So when I went to the office to apply for the Step Up Scholarship for my son, the lady looked at my income and said, ma'am, you don't qualify. And I was like, well, that's what I made last year. Things are different. You all don't have any provision for that? And she was like, only if you are getting some public assistance. I was like, pow, I get food stamps. And then I got the scholarship, and I was able to keep my son in that school that was so foundational for him, and it created a stability. But once again, had I been too arrogant to not accept the help, then I really wouldn't have gotten what I needed. And the other thing, and
Right.
I'll say this because I do diversity and inclusion, there is bias in language, right? When you think about food stamps, you think about the single parent with 10 kids and all of these ugly things. But if we tell ourselves the truth, what is the difference between food stamps and the stimulus package that everybody got? Or the
Mhm.
government bailouts or the things, the businesses? It's nothing different but the words. Because I will tell you, the food stamp program is probably only a microcosm, a nano percentage of all the funds that the government gives out. So I think you can't let language get in your way, and you can't let pride get in your way. So it
Right.
worked out well. Started a couple of businesses. I don't want to get into all the details yet, but the path was a little rocky, but I made the best of it. And I have said, you talked about obstacles and opportunities. I say, and it's going to be my second book, well, my third book, because I did a poetry book, turning lessons into ladders, right? Because if you learn those lessons, it creates ladders. And the ladders can help you propel, but it's also ladders for other people coming behind you, because it's all about the generations and helping others learn those same lessons. So I'm going to stop
Wow.
now to be a monologue, but yeah, my journey has been fun, but it's been a lot going on.
Wow. Wow. No, that's all great stuff. And so, folks, you haven't had a chance to read her book, you can download it, I believe from Amazon,
Yeah,
correct? So
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target,
yeah,
all of
it's a
them,
it's a
absolutely.
quick read. It is inspirational, and there are some life lessons there. And Dee hit on a few things, and I call her Coach D because she is a life coach. She's a consultant, and she's a keynote speaker. But Coach D, a couple of things you said. I love the fact that here you are with a master's degree. You're right out of college and you're going to work at Kroger's. You are sweeping stockroom floors. You are unloading trucks. And people are
Yes.
calling you college girl, right?
College girl, can you go to this? Absolutely.
Right. And some people in that situation, and this is the lesson that I think a lot of folks need to learn. And I've seen it all my career. People graduate from college and they're like, well, I'm a failure. I don't have a job. Well, I would look at them. I say, yes, you do have a job, especially in hospitality. They're like,
Right,
I went to college and now I'm just a front desk agent. Yes, but you have a job in your industry.
right.
And now that you've graduated, you now have the opportunity to move and advance, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so it's getting people to adjust in that way. So you had a very positive mindset. You had a very you said the store manager didn't like you at first, but you want to tell the story as to how you ended up relating to this store manager that didn't like you. No
Yeah,
college
just
degree. He's
right,
probably thinking, who's this uppity college
right,
girl
right.
coming
She's
here,
gonna come and take
master's
over,
degree?
right,
Yeah,
try to change the world. And that's never been my style. I just was willing to serve, right? Okay, what is it that you need me to do? And then I really started taking a lot of things off of his plate that he didn't want to do anyway. Because
right.
they didn't really want to be bothered with the interviewing. They didn't want to do a lot of things. So I just started volunteering to do stuff. And then college girl, I guess, became a term of endearment, right?
Right.
But and so even with like the produce clerk, it was like they were like, oh, he's kind of this. And, it was back in the early 80s, and we started talking about fishing, right? Because I like fishing with my grandmother. He talked about fishing, and so we're sweeping and talking about fishing. And he was able to see a different side of me. So I mean, once again, I think people have more things in common than difference, but you have to just be open. And I wouldn't change my journey, to be honest. I am really glad that I had to do it in steps because I learned some things. And later on, when I became this HR person, expert, whatever you want to call me, when I was on panels and we were interviewing, and other people didn't get it, and they would say, well, why is this person interviewing for this job and they have a master's? Everybody's not a trust fund baby, right? And I could bring a little reality to it. This person is trying to work. They're looking for the experience. You shouldn't not give them opportunity because you think they are overqualified or they work beneath their means. We do what we have to do. And that's when I created that term. And I don't remember what life lesson it is. You wrote it down that I can endure anything that has a time limit, right?
Right.
And so you just figure out what can you learn. And so instead of seeing a dumpy grocery store and failure, I saw all of this opportunity to learn. I was able to interview. At the time, Kroger was unionized, so I learned how to work under a collective bargaining agreement. I learned how to manage customer service. By the way, at the time, the customer service people were the crankiest. I was like, what is up with this? How are the customer service people the crankiest? They had done it by seniority, which that really didn't work because, the customer service people didn't have a lot of service. And, working at Disney, you really understand what that is. But I just saw all the opportunities, and I encourage people, don't get caught up in titles. Get caught up in opportunities, because some of the places that look the worst, you can have the most impact and you can actually learn the most. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was life lesson number 1. And folks, let me just read this to you from the book. And I have my little Kindle here. It says, if you are not fortunate enough to get exactly what you want, then do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. In other words, and I told you during our pre interview phase here that I graduated college. I have a communications degree.
Yep.
I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'll go back down and work and drive antique cars on Main Street, USA. I'm making $5.15 an hour. My parents are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm having a great time, right?
Living life.
And tell you the truth, if they could have paid me, like 6 figures to do that, I'd still be driving antique cars on Main Street, USA. But it was fun. But it wasn't a career for me. But I knew that there were opportunities, and I went into guest relations. I went into teaching traditions, orientation classes. I went into seminar productions and taught business people how Disney does certain things. And then I went into casting, and that launched me into human resources.
That's right.
And that's why I'm here with you today. So, but the key, and that's life lesson number 1. But I want to fast forward to life lesson number 9.
Okay.
Almost life lesson number 9 should be life lesson number 1. And I think a lot of people don't get this. They sit around and they wait for things to happen. But you say, don't do that. You need to be intentional.
Absolutely.
And I can see that in your story. And I want you to dig into that a little bit. And I can see it into my story. If I just sat around, now granted, someone did notice me and say, hey, I want you here, but that doesn't always happen. All the other moves I've made in my career, even moving to the Universal Studios and the Nickelodeon hotels and some of the other jobs I've had, it's all been with an intention. And you call it assess and attack.
Absolutely.
But talk about being intentional.
Yeah. You have to know where you want to go. And if not, you wonder. Like, there are a lot of people that are just wandering around, and they're, like I said, you keep hitting your head against a perennial wall, maybe you're off path. And I talked about path a little bit, which I call passion, alignment, talent, and heart. Because when you're off path, you just keep hitting your head and you keep getting frustrated. But when you're intentional, the path is leading somewhere. So although it may not be where you want it to go, intentionally, I knew I wanted to be in human resources. So people that outside looking in would have thought Kroger is so off path, but it wasn't. There were so many opportunities to learn and do HR at Kroger. But if I had just looked at the title, I would have been like, oh no. So I think it's understanding where you want to go, but then also assessing where you are now. So when you talk about assess and attack, sometimes you don't have the luxury of having a, 5-year strategy plan and everything goes into place.
Right.
But you know where you ultimately want to be. And as long as you set that intention, then as you go through the things that seem like obstacles or detours, you're still learning the lessons, and it'll keep you on path, which to me is being on path is being intentional about ultimately where you want to go. You don't always go from A to Z automatically. There's some lessons. And I'm glad, because I wouldn't have learned the lessons. I was young, right out of school, and I thought I could conquer the world, and I would be a little annoyed, like, why do I need all this experience? I can do it. Now, 25 years later, I know why I needed the experience, and I did it so much better because I got it, and I wouldn't have gotten it coming right out of school.
Right. right? Um, and this is a great lesson for anyone, especially, and I've worked with people that say, well, how can I get into human resources? And one of the things that you did early in your career was you volunteered. You asked, do you need help with this? Do you need help with that? And you started, and I know we keep going back to Kroger, but it's almost like that's such the what would be the word? It's the kernel, like the centerpiece of
It
where you
is.
kind of
It is
grew
because
out from.
absolutely, because I even was able to do, like, after 6 months in the store, because I kept volunteering, I actually got pulled from the store I was, at the time they called it a loaned executive. So I was a
Hmm.
loaned executive with the city of Atlanta. And at the time it was Deloitte and Touche, which now of course is Deloitte, but they were doing a study about how long it took to recruit police officers. And they were like, college girl. And so I was able to do that. And then the other half of the time I was in the office helping recruit for the management training program. So
Hmm.
being that volunteering and being willing to do, it paid off quickly. And so once again, something that looked like, oh, are you serious? Of Kroger, it ended up being exactly what I needed. And I got a multiplicity of experience in different areas of HR in just that 1 year. And after a year and a half, I had a resume that showed HR experience.
Right.
And I was able to launch from there.
You were able to launch, and it's like your ladder theory, right?
I was.
You were able to take that ladder, and I like what you said is sometimes it's not a straight path.
Right.
Sometimes it's a zigzag path,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Zigzag. Sometimes it's forward. Sometimes it's a little back.
Sure.
Sometimes it's over here, right? But it zigzags. Um, Another one of your key concepts was networking, and I know that people sometimes, and you gave a great example, and I see it all the time with people that work in one large company, especially a strong culture like a Disney, for example. And I don't want to talk, so much about, Disney, but it's a great example that when you work there, a lot of times you only get to know the people that work there. There's so much culture there. There's there's activities. You're always with the same sort of folks. So you networked really well, but you networked within your company.
I did.
And so folks, network was one of your life lessons, is to kind of get out there. Don't just network within your company or within your group of friends. You may think, oh, I'm well networked, look at all my friends. You've got to break that mold. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about networking.
Sure, sure. I definitely had to break the mold because, to your point, I was networking and everybody knew me, but it was all within the same group. So when I was ready to transition, it took a lot longer than it should have because I didn't join like the local HR or the Black MBA or all of these things where I could have met people from different organizations. So once I left, I said, okay, this will never happen to me again. I will learn to be the network queen. And I did. I started going to different activities, social events, passing out cards. I mean, I don't know if you all do Gallup. Woo is in my top 5, but so I do like meeting people, but it was intentional, right? It wasn't just going to a party. It was like, I need to start building a network of people, whether it's mentors. I need to start getting to know people, understanding different cultures. And then, I mean, the good news now, and if you all are watching, LinkedIn makes it so much easier, right? And but back then that didn't happen. But I just started networking. And so even my job when the recession was over, I got that job when I went to Cocoa Key. It was through networking because someone that I knew that had worked at Disney was now working there and they knew me. So once again, it was through networking, but it's just wonderful. Don't get so narrow. I think when you don't network, you fall so in love with whatever that culture is and you don't realize there are so many different ways to do things. There's not a right or a wrong, but you just get that exposure. You get to talk to people because, recruiters are always selling you, right? Not that they may not be selling something good, but you really want to know about a culture from people that actually work there, not the
Mm-hmm.
people designed to attract you.
Right. So talk to us about what you're doing now, ACE Solutions.
Yeah, man,
Tell
I am
us.
living my dream, right? So, Authentic Culture and Engagement Solutions is a a firm, but it's kind of dually focused. I focus on organizations, but there's also a part that focuses on people. So from an organizational perspective, it is primarily inclusion, but once again, I was intentional. Let me tell you about how I got the name. They had surveyed all these CEOs and asked them, what is your top priority? And like 80% said culture. They asked, what about diversity? 30% said diversity. Well, you and I both know that inclusion is a huge part of culture, because if you have an inclusive culture, you have higher engagement and you ultimately have a better culture. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to name my organization diversity, whatever. I'm going to name it Authentic Culture and Engagement Solutions, because people want solutions. And I think the authenticity was big, because I've worked for lots of Fortune 500 companies, and people don't realize the closer you get to the sun, the less truth you get. So a lot of times CEOs think this culture is wonderful because people tell them that. It's kind of like, the emperor, who's going to tell the emperor they butt naked? And what I learned too was a lot of companies will listen to consultants from the outside, but the people right there living it, they don't always listen to. So those were some of the reasons, but it starts with authenticity. You have to really analyze your culture and figure out ways to be more inclusive. So that's the umbrella, but there's subsets to that. So one of the things I do, and that brings in the coaching piece, I do like diversity crisis management, right? So, someone put something out there, they thought it was smart, didn't necessarily talk to anybody. And then you have the, I guess, H&M story with the little black boy that says coolest monkey in the jungle. Everybody's like,
right.
Like, oh my God, what do? Call Coach D. Let's come up with something, whether it's a statement. And the other thing I'm doing right now, and I'm hopeful, I have a few clients, helping people find their diversity voice, right? For the longest time, we weren't really engaged. It was still, okay, let's do it. But people weren't bold about it, right? I mean, the whole Black Lives Matter thing has blown up everything in a sense, because 2 years ago, companies wouldn't say it, right? And now you have all these people that have it on their banners.
Right.
But authenticity perspective, you have to find your diversity voice. I mean, you can't go from super conservative company that doesn't get involved in anything, and then, 2 weeks later, you got Black Lives Matter banners everywhere, right? And then for the leader, how do you position? So one of the things I do is help coach leaders into finding their diversity and inclusion voice. So what part of this resonates with you, right? If it's the humanity piece, let's go there. If it's the business piece, let's go there. But find something that you really believe in. Once again, it has to be authentic, and let that be the anchor, and then everything else can come from there. So, I mean, the good news is right now with everything that's happening, it's been devastating, but it's also been an awakening.
Right.
And I am more calls. I have a few contracts, and just really trying to get people to communicate, talk about it. Diversity is not a dirty word. For so long it was like, we don't talk about race. Oh, we're colorblind. No, let's talk about it, and let's make some progress, because if you don't talk about it, you're ignoring it, but it's not getting any better.
Right. You know what? I like that aspect of working with leaders and finding their authenticity as to what that means, and then building upon that.
Absolutely.
So it becomes real, and once it becomes real and authentic, it becomes part of the culture.
Absolutely.
Right. And I like that. Coach D, we are down to our last minute or so, believe it or not.
Oh,
yeah, I kid you not. So why don't you just tell us, if people wanted to get hold of you, how could they get hold of you, and what would they expect from that? Sure.
Yeah, CoachDeloria@gmail.com is an easy one. So Coach Deloria, Deloria. A Solutions, you can find me in LinkedIn of Deloria Nelson. But yeah, there's lots of ways to find me, but I'm here to just lend my assistance, right? Whether it's coaching, whether it's D&I. I also do coaching for individuals, not just corporations, trying to help you get unstuck, understanding what are the disempowering beliefs that are holding you back. Because I think everybody needs to live their dreams. And that's what I'm doing now. It wasn't easy, but it can be done. So as a coach, I can help you be intentional about getting to where you've always dreamed of, and not letting the obstacles stop you and you feel like, I'll never do that. You can do it. Just got to be intentional. If you need me to help you, I can do that. But you only get one life. Live it. Do what you want to do. Even if you're doing what you don't want to do in the midst, be intentional and do what you need to do so you can position yourself to do you and to share your dreams. I mean, you have a voice. Everybody has, I think their gifts are as unique as their DNA. And the world needs to hear your voice. So don't play small and don't push it behind. And it's never too late. I'm in my 50s. I know I found the fountain of youth, but I am in my 50s. You can do it. Just go for it. Forget all the negative people. You know, you can get rid of them for a little while and just focus on being the best version of yourself possible. Yeah.
All right. No, there you have it, folks. I love that. Consultant, change agent, author, keynote speaker. She's helping individuals. She's helping organizations and companies. Coach D, I will put the contact information in the notes below as we share this out there. It has been fantastic having you on the show. I think you're one of those guests. You've got so many facets. Maybe in a couple weeks, couple months or so, when you're free again, I'd love to have you back on the show. Dig into some of the things that you talked about. The authenticity piece on diversity and inclusion, I thought was can be something we could really dive into. And that's it, folks. If you need someone along the lines of what Dee does, and like I said, there's so many things she does in regards to helping people and organizations, life coaching, you want to get hold of her. If you need direct HR help, you want to give a shout out to gethrnow.com. Gethrhelpnow.com. This show is sponsored by Alliance HR Partners. Give us a call and we can help you with all your HR needs. Coach D, thank you for coming on the show. Absolutely. And until next time, we'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye.